You're listening to the Flickcast, a podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and joining me, of course, my co-host, Joe Dilworth. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how are you? I'm glad to be back.
I'm glad to be back, too. How was your holiday? Was it productive or hopefully not productive, I guess?
I've been off work from the day job for a couple weeks, doing some stuff, and mainly just doing stuff in my home office, which is weird. So when I'm working, I'm in my home office, and so I spent the time not working in my home office.
And it's weird.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Yeah,
What am I doing here? I don't know why I'm here.
I know. Well, I had some things I wanted to get. I've had some problems with my 3D printers, and I wanted to dedicate enough time to really get them going right. And I finally figured things out, so it's all good. It took me the entire 2 weeks to get it all figured out, unfortunately. But that's okay. It's okay, because now I'm printing.
Was it because you're just dumb, or no? I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's pretty much because I'm dumb. But
I'm joking. You're not dumb.
no, it was actually of my own doing, and I had to replace some parts that I broke because of it. But it was good lessons learned. So.
Did you ever watch the company Wormwood Gaming? They make like high-end gaming accessories for D&D and stuff, like tables and dice rollers and DM screens and all kinds of shit.
No.
Anyway, they have a YouTube channel, and they always have interesting stuff. But one of the things that they were just talking about recently was 3D printing. So one of the prototyping guys got this 3D printer, and they were prototyping these dice vaults and all kinds of stuff. And I thought of you. I'm like, oh, that's a cool 3D printer. I wonder if Joe would appreciate that. I bet you would. So anyway, it was fun. They were rapid prototyping things on the 3D printer instead of making them out of wood.
Well, exactly. And I did some other stuff in the home office. I got some LED lights up and got some stuff hung on the walls.
LED
and stuff
lights?
Like
what, are you having a party in there?
I am.
A rave or what?
It is. And I got it
you got
basically.
Glow sticks?
Yeah, exactly. I got it better organized and set up, and I got some stuff up on the walls and all that. So
cool. You sounds like you're moving in finally.
Yeah, after a couple of years. So
do you still have any boxes that are packed? Because
we have a garage.
Still.
We have all our books, only because we don't really have space to put up our bookshelves. All our books are still in boxes in the garage.
It's so weird. I'm sure there's shit in our garage that needs to be unpacked.
Well, the other thing too,
7 years. So
we also had some we had a couple stoves from my wife's business that's no longer running. They've been sitting in the garage, and so we got a bunch of stuff cleaned out and salvaged out of the garage. So now we can actually, because we have we moved into a much smaller space, so we have like another couch and some tables and stuff out in the garage. So we want to actually set that up for like an area where we can have people over and we can do puzzles or hang out and stuff like that. So
it can be a giant hot box, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
so we're gonna reorganize the garage at some point.
I kid. No one ever does that.
No. So it was. I didn't do anything to do with my day job, which is nice, and just kind of worked on a writing project I needed to work on. Watch some stuff that we'll talk about.
Yes, definitely.
And got the office organized. So it was
like you said, it's good to be back. It's good to take some time off sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's also good to be back. So on today's episode, we will talk about things that we've seen, including Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
And maybe some Stranger Things. And if we have time, another wonderful episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's just getting so good and still good. And then we'll have picks, and then we'll move on with our lives. But in the first place, or in the first position, or the first thing, wow, some great transitions. I'm a professional, folks. We will talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi. What do you think?
Oh man, I think we've talked about.
He is the chosen one. Wait, no, that's not it.
He is. I have the high ground. Oh, anyway.
They brought that. I'm so happy to find out that they brought that back in. So spoilers for Obi-Wan Kenobi if you haven't seen the first 3 episodes. But yes, they do. In one of Obi-Wan's flashbacks, or whatever you want to call it, they do talk about the high ground, and they show Obi-Wan Anakin getting burned a couple of times. And anyway,
they drive that. But
what'd you think, man?
Well,
what'd you think of it?
We've talked about this before, that when they first announced there was going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi show, I was like, why? And it's like, well, I guess it'll be okay, but do we really want to see a bunch of episodes of a dude sitting in the desert. And then the more we heard about it, it was like, oh, this could be interesting. And they did their marketing well, I'll say this. So then when finally we got to the trailer, it was like, hey, this might be really good. And I would say it by far completely exceeds any of my expectations for it. I was just, I don't know, I've been kind of blown away. It's pretty amazing. Ewan McGregor just does this phenomenal job of playing this broken person, beat down, broken Obi-Wan, who's like, all I have left is this last mission, and by God, I'm going to do it. And I don't know. It just, I very much like the thing that, especially the trailer and some of the things they were talking about and emphasized, made you think, oh, so it's going to be, the years that he watched over Luke, and they totally subvert that expectation by it's actually an adventure with him and young Leia, which was completely surprising.
She's I don't always like kids, but she's really great and delightful, I guess is the word that you can use. But yeah, it's like I really like the fact that this is sort of a character study. It's more about Obi-Wan is basically defeated. It's like he says it more than one time. It's like go hide. We're done. The war's over. We lost. He's like devastated. He lost his friend and his brother. Thought he killed him, I suppose, but and it's like the Sith is won and the Jedi are destroyed, and everything he ever believed. I mean, look, he talks about how he was left his home when he was like 6 months old or something to go to become a Jedi, and it's like,
and he has a brother.
His whole his whole family. I mean, I don't know. That's hard to believe that he could remember anything because he was a baby, but maybe.
Well, Leia remembered her mother's eyes. So.
That's true, but he's defeated, which is why I think he's just basically given up, and maybe this whole thing with Bail Organa is like, we need you, Obi-Wan. We need you to say, you're the only one I trust to save Leia, and it's like, okay, I can do that, and it's giving him a reason to live, because I feel like that they were showing the repetitive nature of his life, and I don't know, I feel like he was almost at the end of his rope in some ways.
Yeah.
And the only thing that was sort of keeping him going was his duty to watch after Luke, and to try to become, part of Luke's life, giving him the T-16 model, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But Owen's like, nah, man, we're not having any of that shit. But I don't know. There's a few things that sort of like, oh, why did she pick Owen as the third sister? Why did she pick Owen to pick on, except to give? I mean, how, did she know that was Luke's? It's like that's a bit of a coincidence. A few things like that. And I gotta say, I still sort of question the logic of bringing Darth Vader into it. And that's it's super cool, and Darth Vader's a badass, obviously, and the whole idea of them, I am what you made me, that kind of thing. I don't know. I maybe would have waited to have that happen till the end or closer to the end. It's a big swing to bring Darth Vader in, and I almost think in some ways it was more like we have to have something cool like that for fans, and so we're going to do that. I don't know. And then why is Hayden Christensen there? He's just like in one shot from far away.
He's in the suit.
It's like, yeah, but that could have been anybody, right?
So it sounded like this, and I know everybody says this when they're making something, but it sounded like they had a very good story reason for why they. And here's my thing: continuity aside, because I don't really care about that, honestly. We're telling a really good Obi-Wan story of like what happened to him after everything fell apart, and I think. Yeah. If you're doing this character study of, you have to bring Anakin and Darth Vader into it, because, I mean, that was a huge thing for him, obviously. And so you have to have a follow-up to that. And, I don't really care. We've discussed this before. I don't really care if it messes with continuity, because continuity was fast and loose and always has been in the Star Wars universe anyway. So,
from a certain point of view. Yes.
Right. And I'm going to make out with my sister. But anyway...
They didn't really make it.
Well,
there wasn't any tongue, I don't think.
In Empire, I think there was, but
really,
yeah,
no,
sure looked like it. Anyway, I think I like it. I think it's really great. Of course, thrilled.
I like
James
it too.
Earl Jones voicing him again. So
yeah, he sounds great.
Yeah.
Although I read something that said that it wasn't James Earl Jones; it was James Earl Jones computerized. Like they used his voice, but they changed his dialogue or something because his voice doesn't it sound the same anymore? I don't know. I don't know if that's true, but
They had to modulate it digitally, from what I hear, because he is
yeah,
90, but
yeah.
it's him newly recorded lines. But
Is it?
yeah,
I wasn't sure about that, but I
yep,
mean, I take your word for it. No, I liked it a lot too, and you're right about Ewan McGregor. I mean, he definitely like picks right up where he left off. I mean, he could have
yeah,
just stepped out of the shuttle or whatever and been on Tatooine, from the other movie. It's like, I mean, he's obviously aged and everything, but it's basically an aged and defeated Obi-Wan. It's like everything that's gone wrong could have gone wrong, except Luke and Leia are still alive. But he doesn't know anything else, and he's basically defeated. I really think it was effective to show sort of the idea that he's doing the same thing every day. He's taking that little piece of
yes,
whatever for his little horse or whatever you want to call him,
yeah.
and just doing this sort of repetitive life. And he's on the road to the end almost. He's given up. He's basically cashed in. He's like, there's nothing else to do except to wait it out. And so
Yep. Well, I mean,
it's good.
so even like up until the point where he does actually encounter Vader, even though he has it, he doesn't use his lightsaber. He still uses his fist or blasters. And even then, he's like not. He's half-heartedly fighting him. He's like, I don't know. He just drives home that this is kind of like all my fears, right here, in this suit facing me, and I don't want to do this. I want to get as far away from here as possible.
He fights when he's protecting Leia.
Yeah, but he doesn't use his
Fights.
lightsaber though.
No, he uses a blaster
Right.
and punches him. Yeah,
Yeah.
clumsy and random. And he definitely uses his fist, but he will fight hard to protect her.
Yes.
But yeah, he only and even when he does finally ignite the lightsaber, he's mostly using it for a light source, which I think is pretty interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, he's barely fighting back. He's barely doing anything, and maybe he's out of practice, or maybe there was a great scene when Leia. I mean, you knew that eventually he would use the Force, but there was a great
Yes.
scene where she falls and whatever, and you can see. He talks about it, he's like, what the Force is like when you turn on the light. You feel safe, and he's like, you can tell. He's like, I don't fucking feel that anymore, man. I
Right.
don't feel
He has
any
a
of that
hard
anymore.
time using the Force. Then.
Well, yeah, he just doesn't. He doesn't feel the safety. He doesn't feel everything he knew was destroyed. And when he uses the Force that time, you can sort of see it in his face. And this is really great acting work by Ewan McGregor. You feel his sort of, I don't know if the word is joy, but you feel his kind of relief that he can still feel it. Like he feels something.
Yes.
Finally, and obviously there was that catalyst to get him to do, but he doesn't seem to want to fight Darth Vader. It's almost like he wants to give up.
That's what I'm saying. He's like, I
and
want to
get
get,
killed,
I want to
yeah.
get away from this. I don't want any part of this. I'm only, basically at that point, I feel like the only reason I'm defending myself against him is because I still need to make sure Leia's okay.
Yeah.
So, and it,
Well, and also he's just out of practice. I mean,
Yeah.
how long has it been since he's been? He's not the Obi-Wan that he used to be. He's
Yeah.
not.
it
Even in Dira Varma's character, whose name escapes me, the character's name, he's like, I can't believe the Obi-Wan Kenobi would do anything wrong or whatever. He's like,
yeah. Well,
Obi-Wan Kenobi is not who he used to be. You know what I'm saying?
in a way too, that kind of helps reconcile the lackluster lightsaber battle in A New Hope, because he's another 10 years out of practice presumably by that point. So he's just like, and at that point he's not really trying to. He's just trying to distract him so everyone can escape, and he plans on dying anyway. So
He's just buying time. He's gonna be he's
Yeah.
gonna become one with the Force, right? But
So
Yeah.
I really love it, and definitely Vivian Lyra Blair is amazing as young Leia. I mean, she's not only a great actress, but I think especially the way she's written and the way she plays her, it's like, oh, that's totally Leia. I could totally buy that, right? It's like, oh yeah, that's totally her.
Well, it's Padme too, though, and even Obi-Wan's like, you remind me so much of your mother, because she does. Her mother was very tough and very strong and very.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like they're making the case that maybe Obi-Wan had a thing for Padme too.
I think he did. I think that was kind of evident at the time.
Yeah, and he just
He, unlike
Jedi-
Anakin, was like, yeah, Jedi don't do this. So
yeah, Jedi don't have girlfriends, but anyway, yeah, I'm really enjoying the show. Of course, some people don't like it, of course, but whatever, and they hate they hate the girl. The
Moses
girl,
Ingram
they hate
is
Moses Ingram.
amazing.
No, I think she's great.
Yeah.
I think that if I had any, I'm sort of bummed out about what happened to the Grand Inquisitor. That seems like, is he going to come back? Because I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I know it's not his story. Obviously, it has to be, and of course, you could make the case, and I'm sure lots of people have that Moses Ingram's character, the third sister, was the youngling at the beginning. Otherwise, why have that?
That's
right?
got to be, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, it's. I mean, they even in the shot when she comes into the sort of command room or the whatever the room where they're talking, there's a helmet from Youngling helmet in the background. I keep saying Youngling. That's a stupid name, but anyway.
Well, that's what they were called, but.
I know, but it's just because he can't say he's killing children. You can say
Right.
younglings.
Yeah.
It makes it sound
Yes.
more palatable somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I almost feel like Darth Vader walking down the thing. It's like walking down the street, which is pretty badass. But it's like I've got to choke all these people and I've got to kill people for no reason to show. I mean, I kind of feel like we already got that in Rogue One a little bit. We already know that Darth Vader's evil. I mean. He is evil, folks. We don't really need to remind everybody necessarily.
But I think
I know why he was doing. He was trying to goad Obi-Wan to come out of the hiding. Yeah.
Well, that, and I think it also fits where he is at the time. He's still, I mean, yeah, it's 10 years later, but he's still freshly, probably still learning, and he's just like, much like Anakin was, impetuous, and it's just like, well, I'm gonna kill some motherfuckers because I can.
Well, that's it. Yeah, he can do whatever he wants.
He becomes more calculated and everything later, obviously, as we see or do we in the movies. But and the other thing, I know that the criticism of this is like, so it's 10 years before A New Hope. How do we get from, Ewan McGregor as he looks to Alec Guinness, right? Well, here's the thing. Ewan McGregor is 51 and Alec Guinness was 63 when he did A New Hope. So it's like, yeah, totally 10 years. I mean,
well, also Alec Guinness was a raging alcoholic and a smoker, so that's probably why he looks so old.
Yeah, well, somebody even posted a picture of him in 66 or 67 doing a play, and he's not white haired and white beard. Maybe they dyed it, but he's still, a lot of pictures from him around that time, 10 years before that, he looks kind of like the same kind of hair color and everything that Ewan McGregor has now. So it's like, yeah, it's, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me because obviously they're two different people. Ewan McGregor is not Alec Guinness. They're not the same person. So.
Oh, and we did get a nice cameo from Tamura Morrison too.
Yeah, I wonder if he recognized Obi-Wan and just didn't say anything, because you would think he would, right?
You would think so, but yeah, maybe because there was kind of a look he gave him after he put credits in his helmet, and he's kind of like, "Well, you helped me out and you gave me money, so I won't."
Well, I mean, Order 66, we don't know how long that really lasted. Maybe it wears off eventually, or you just
that could be. Yeah,
he was in a bad way. But still wearing his clone trooper armor, which I thought was cool. Yeah, I mean, good for him. That was pretty interesting.
And Kamal Nanjiani.
Yeah, he was great. He was really good.
As the con artist Jedi, that was pretty great. I'm glad he didn't get killed. I thought.
No, maybe he can come back later.
Yeah, he's going to come back and save the day or something. They're already talking about season 2, so
it's already greenlit apparently.
Is it?
So,
I would see more of this. I don't know.
I guess why wouldn't you make more? I mean, like you said, we were both dubious. Like, why do we need to know necessarily what happens in these 10, 20 years or whatever?
Right.
But now, I like the fact that they're going more for a character study, more for, here's a broken down, defeated Obi-Wan. Here's, everything's gone to shit, basically. This is during the ascendance of the Empire and all that stuff. And things are looking pretty bleak, but he gets these small victories like saving Leia, which I assume he does, and brings her back to Coruscant or
Spoilers.
Alderaan. I'm sorry, not Coruscant. Spoilers, yeah. Leia survives, by the way, everybody. Or Leia, I should say. Leia was somebody else, but
Leia.
But anyway. Leia. But yeah, Leia survives, and spoilers, also Luke survives for a long time too. And even Owen and Aunt Beru live for a while, but not forever, sadly.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan does not make it through Star Wars, though, as we know. But he is able to sacrifice himself dramatically, which I guess, like you said, it kind of gives more weight maybe to that scene where he sacrifices himself so Luke and Han and everybody and Leia can escape.
Yes.
Because if you think about it, he knows everything, right? He knows Luke and Leia are brother and sister. He knows Han is going to be well, he doesn't know what Han's going to be necessarily, but he knows Luke and Leia, and they have to survive, and he's willing to buy them some time so the big blast door can close.
Yes.
How that saves them, I don't know. You think that Darth Vader could just lightsaber through that door or whatever, but
Or
he's
use
too
the
busy
Force to open it, but whatever.
Yeah, but he's too busy checking, kicking
Going through Obi-Wan's
clothes
pockets.
yeah, it's like wow. Yeah. So when you become a Force ghost, your clothes disappear, but then you have clothes when you appear as a ghost because you can't appear naked. I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. He's going through checking out Obi-Wan's wallet. And
going through his pockets. Yeah, what is he got?
Wallet.
Boosting his money. What, you got credits in here or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I would have thought he would take the lightsaber, frankly, but maybe he does. But
I don't know.
But it was interesting when he did. Speaking of lightsabers, when Obi-Wan, how he finds the lightsabers, I don't know. I assume they're calling to him.
Well, you could use the Force for that. Yeah.
No, but lightsabers with the kyber crystals, they're kind of alive in some ways, right? So they talk to the Jedi, like that thing happened with Rey when she picked up the lightsaber in it. So he knows where it is, but he opens the box and there's 2 lightsabers in there, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yep.
So what happens to the other one? I don't know, but it's just cool.
Well, that's Anakin's lightsaber, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and Luke ends up with that one that ends up at the bottom of Bespin.
That's right. It does.
Held by a hand.
Right. Then it ends up in a box in Maz Kanata's whatever. But that was pretty cool. I don't know. There's those little beats, and he like puts them, and you see him go to the spaceport, and it's like sort of hanging there, but he's covering it. Like Jedi cover their lightsabers. That's just why you knew Kamal Nanjiani's character was bogus, because his lightsaber's like hanging out. Hey, everybody, I'm a Jedi.
Hey, Jedi. I kind of question Obi-Wan's choice to basically put on Jedi robes to go out in public, but
wow,
you know.
They're very practical for Tatooine,
but
sand-colored clothes.
Well, no, when he goes to Dayu to get Leia, it's like, well, that's obviously a Jedi get-up. But again, marketing, and you got to sell toys. So
you do have to sell toys, but that's just probably the only clothes he has.
Well, that's probably true.
Like he doesn't have an extensive wardrobe. I'm going to a planet with whatever. I better wear something different.
But to me, that's what I really enjoy about. One of the things I really enjoy about these shows, even the Marvel ones, is. And to a certain extent, some of the stuff they're doing with Star Trek with Picard, we get to have a multi-episode, basically, character study of specific characters. Because I know, a lot of people are like, oh, there's not a lot of action and all this stuff in them. And I'm like, there doesn't have to be. There shouldn't be, because that's not what these are about. They're, more of a character study. And to me, they're more interesting because we get to see, like I said, I already have a better understanding of why Obi-Wan did a lackluster, lightsaber battle with Vader and where he was at that point. It's like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense now. And he didn't just, sit in a hut in the desert for 20 years waiting by the campfire for Luke to, become Force sensitive. He did other stuff, which makes sense. So I don't know. I like it. I think it's really good. I hope they make more past this season, since we're, I think, halfway through. I think it's only 6 episodes, but
yeah, it's like the thing that people talk about with Rey. It's like, oh, she learned the Force so quickly, blah blah blah. But people forget Luke was a fucking teenager. He was never in the Jedi Academy. He was never anything. He never had any training until Obi-Wan talked to him on the Millennium Falcon for like 20 minutes.
Right.
And then he's a fucking Jedi practically by the time he goes to Yoda, and everything takes time. And we don't really know exactly how long he's on Dagobah, but it can't be that long.
Right, exactly.
I mean, they're going to Bespin. Maybe they don't have the the hyperdrive, but it's like maybe it takes a few months or whatever. I don't know, but it's like he's not exactly training for years as a youngling.
Right.
And even Yoda's like, too old to start the training, blah, blah. But I thought that was an interesting scene with there's a point to what I'm saying. I thought there was an interesting scene with Owen and Obi-Wan is like, when he's, we agreed when he was old enough, he should be trained. Owen's like, fuck that, man. You already fucked that up with Anakin.
Yeah, how to go training your...
like you did with his dad?
Yeah.
No, fuck that.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan is like, again, Ewan McGregor, man, he's so good in this show. It's like you can see... It's like a slap in the face. And he feels like the physical pain of what Owen's saying. He's like, you're right. You're absolutely right. I was not ready to train Anakin. Yeah. Qui-Gon should have trained him. Qui-Gon was going to take him on as a Padawan and train him. And I was not able to. It's my fault. And that's a lot of it. It's guilt too. It's like, it's my fault this has happened. It's my fault that he became Darth Vader. It's
absolutely.
my fault that the whole world and the universe is suffering because I fucked up and wasn't strong enough to train him, and sense that he was turning to the dark side, or all that stuff. But I mean, all the Jedi are culpable in some ways, because they kind of treated Anakin like they treat him like a bitch, kind of like, you're not going to grant you the rank of master,
Yeah.
because you're not that, fuck you, kind of thing.
Yeah, we'll let you like
Even
pretend, but we're not gonna.
even
Yeah.
even Mace Windu is like, you're kind of I don't like you. You're an impetuous
And,
little shit.
and Yoda, they did this all on
Yeah,
themselves. Really, they brought it all on themselves.
they
Honestly,
did, but I think the I think that Obi-Wan really thinks, especially in that moment, he's like, it's all my fault.
yeah.
It really is. I was not strong enough. You were the chosen one. You're supposed to bring balance to the force. I believe that shit, and that's all destroyed now.
And he finds out. Yeah.
And
Oh, you're talking about the scene
yeah.
where the sister tells him, "Oh yeah, Darth Vader's Anakin." He's like, "Oh crap." Yeah.
No, I'm saying when Owen tells him, how did that work out with you training his father?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Which is interesting because what is he talking about exactly? He's just talking about how Anakin became evil and killed a bunch of people, and they had to take him away from, because Owen doesn't know that he's Darth Vader, right?
No.
So
No.
he just knows that Anakin turned evil and killed younglings and,
Yeah,
and
that's
betrayed
all,
the Jedi
and
and
that's
everything.
all that Obi-Wan knows at that moment too. But that's enough to say,
Right.
yeah, you trained him well, but look, you had to end him because he, went off the hook, basically.
Right, and then later he finds out that
Yeah,
that's a great scene, by the way. When she says that, he's like, looks like it's just Vader, and then they cut to him, and it's like they finally made a connection. They're aware of each other at that moment.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And he's like, fuck, man,
yeah.
it's a lot to take.
You know
in,
that
which
that scene with Owen too, where he's like, yeah, like you trained his father, blah blah blah. That actually completely not, yeah, it completely changes my opinion of him because now you know why. Again, now you know why in A New Hope he's not just this dick uncle that's like, oh, I can't believe I got this kid as a burden. He's like, no, you're not going to go do this stuff. I'm going to keep you here safe. And obviously, I can't tell
Right.
you why, because if I
Right.
do, you're immediately going to be like, oh, I want to go be a Jedi. So
Yeah.
it's like, wow. So he isn't just
yeah,
an
it's
a-hole.
yeah, he's not just an asshole. Need those units on the South Ridge by midday. There's gonna be hell to pay, Luke.
Like, I'm actually trying to
those-
keep him safe. It's like,
Those
wow,
that moisture's not going to evaporate itself.
that's right.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
I mean, you get a little hint of that with him when Luke looks like I'm going nowhere. Remember, he like storms out like a little bitch, and he and Beru were like, she's like, he's got too much of his father, and was like, yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
Right.
Man. And it's
Yeah.
like it's more poignant. I know every line in Star Wars. So
I know.
I've seen it too many times.
But yeah, that
probably,
scene is
but
more poignant now.
It
and
is
everything.
because they're like it's got a lot more weight, and I appreciate that. And I do like the fact that Joel Edgerton is trying to sort of evoke in some ways the actor who played
Yeah.
Owen Lars in the original. I really dig that. He's actually, you can sort of see it a little bit. It's funny. And that he came back from the prequels too, which I think is cool.
Well, I think
But,
the sister picked him specifically because, to answer your question earlier, because she's very force sensitive and she's probably, cursory reading minds as she's walking around and senses, Jedi or whatever popping up in Owen's head. And she's like, oh, so he knows something.
maybe.
So-
Yeah, you might be right. I mean, maybe he can't hide it well enough. But I guess you could also make the case that maybe he's force sensitive because
be.
he is related to the Skywalkers, right? Somehow.
No, by marriage.
Who's the Skywalker then? Is it Beru?
No. Owen's dad married
I can't remember
married Shmi and Frieder as a slave.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so it's
That's
only by
right.
marriage.
Okay. I forgot their history. Yeah,
And
that's right.
I mean, the other thing too is she picked Owen because narratively, it is dramatically
Well,
makes sense.
sure,
So,
of course. I know. I
but
hear you.
but then the whole time I'm like, well, I know her threat's empty because she doesn't kill him or his family because
we don't really know who kills them later, do we?
Stormtroopers
I mean, it could have been. Maybe it's her too. We don't know.
Oh,
We
could
don't
be.
see it. It's off camera, right?
Well-
Luke just comes back and is like, no.
we've got to see if she makes it through the series. So
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, I feel like that's they're saving the big fight for her and Obi-Wan. I think he's going to end up killing her probably.
that, or if you go by drama at some point, because she was a youngling too, I'm presuming at some point she's going to realize the error of her ways, and at some key critical moment she helps Obi-Wan.
Maybe. I feel like she, in a lot of ways, that her and Obi-Wan are kind of like balancing each other.
Oh, that's
Because
good.
he's, well, because she's disillusioned, obviously, with the Jedi. If she was that youngling and everything that she knew was bullshit and realized the Force is, whatever, she turned to the dark side, or for whatever, she's angry. She's got anger and fear and whatever. That's the path to the dark side, right? So maybe you're right. Maybe she will, at a crucial moment, redeem herself and try to help Obi-Wan. But against who? Who's going to be against Darth Vader? No. I mean, they're not going to have another fight. This was it. I don't think they're going to fight again until, New Hope. But
you don't think he'll be in it anymore?
I called it New Hope. Shit, I don't want to.
Yeah, I've been calling it that too, only because.
Because it's easier for people to understand. But I still call it Star Wars. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that he'll be in again. Maybe he will. But they can't have a climactic battle between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader in this series because that happens later.
Yeah.
So they have to. This is the only way I think they could have had Darth Vader in, where Darth Vader's like, I'm going to rake you over the coals, literally, and he gets saved. But I mean, Obi-Wan's not even trying to really get away, which I thought was interesting. I think he feels like this is his, this is his punishment that he deserves.
Yeah.
In some way. So, but I don't know that we'll see Darth Vader again. Maybe we will. I don't know. But at some point, there's going to have to be a fight between him and the third sister, or the Grand Inquisitor comes back at some point, and they're more of, although. They're obviously not as cool villains as Darth Vader. So
I did nice little call out to Quinlan Voss. So it'd be interesting to see. So he's obviously survived Order 66. So it'd be interesting to see if he shows up.
Maybe he's the guy who saved Grogu. That was my theory too.
Oh, that could be. Yeah,
because they don't show Grogu in that wide shot of the temple at the beginning, but maybe Quinlan's already saved Grogu and some other younglings.
That could be, and maybe he shows up. Maybe he shows up in Mandalorian.
Or in Ahsoka.
Yeah. Ahsoka, yeah.
Maybe. But I feel like they're going to have Ahsoka be, Luke's going to come back. Maybe Luke shows up in this one. Oh, he can't, I guess, because he's too young.
Well, he already has in Obi-Wan. But
well, that's true. Yeah. But not as himself, but as a younger self.
Yes.
Yeah. Wearing the pod racer glasses or whatever. But anyway, yeah, I
really like it. It's a really great
I was
show.
Dubious, but it's super cool. And I think 95% of that is that I just love Star Wars shit, and also because Ewan McGregor is doing such a great job, and I think everybody does a pretty good job, but I think he's just nailing it every time. He's got the little, although he did miss one opportunity to say hello there, but he didn't do it, sadly.
Yes,
I love that callback though. I love that he took that from Alec Guinness. Hello there.
Yes. The other thing I guess that surprised me is, and maybe it shouldn't, but the whole, previously on Star Wars, basically, before the first episode, I mean, they showed like everybody, which I guess you have to give context to the whole thing, but
sure, it
was kind of interesting that, they showed everybody. I was like, wow, that's interesting. So,
well, they had to, because they have to make the case that some people might be coming into this show having never seen the other movies, or maybe haven't seen them in a long time. Because not everybody goes back and watches all the prequels and shit, or the original trilogy or anything. But that was kind of funny. I had forgotten some things, like when Yoda and Obi-Wan are talking about, teach you to communicate with him, I will. Talking about Qui-Gon.
Yeah,
so trying to communicate with.
Go and I will teach you how to commune with your master and stuff.
Which makes me wonder, when is Liam Neeson going to show up, man?
He's already going to voice Qui-Gon in one of the animated shows they announced, so it would be very easy for him to show up. You
do hear him.
That's true.
At one point in that scene when Obi-Wan's trying to commune with him, you do hear him and of course Anakin as well.
Well, and if you're doing like a true character study, I mean, part of this whole thing is him becoming more reconnecting with the Force, and so right. One of your resolutions whenever the show ends, or even for the season finale, is him finally learning to commune with Qui-Gon, right? And so do you use? Yeah. Do you actually have him show up, or do you just use previous dialogue, or how does that work? So that's
no. I think you
can't just
have him
promise.
Show up.
You can't promise us that and not have it happen at this point.
Yeah.
So
I think you'll be able to reach him at a pivotal moment, and Qui-Gon will give him guidance about how to deal with the fact that he fucked up. Because
Yeah.
Qui-Gon probably has some guilt too
Yeah.
about how things went astray, and he wasn't able to complete his mission, and maybe he shouldn't have taken on two Padawans, and he couldn't watch Anakin enough, and he was too busy with Obi-Wan or whatever. And then getting stabbed by Darth Maul, that was a kind of a bummer.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
But I think you'll be able. I think you'll show up when it's time to provide crucial guidance for Obi-Wan to realize that everything is not hopeless.
Yes.
you know, and these two, especially Luke, are the future, and will be able to. You're doing something important. Even waiting is important. Even doing nothing is sometimes important.
Right.
Very important. And just keeping Luke safe as much as you can, because he's the key to all of this. And people, and I think this is interesting. And of course, I didn't necessarily understand this when I was a kid when I saw Star Wars. But in some ways, Obi-Wan is a lot like Jesus, right? People are talking about that now more because he
Yes.
dies for the sins of Qui-Gon and for the Jedi, right?
Right.
To let Luke survive. So I wonder if Lucas was thinking about that when he wrote it. Probably not, but maybe he was. But he does look a lot like the sort of typical version of Jesus. But anyway, I think it's great, and I'm happy to see that it's certainly much better than I thought it was going to be, because I was like, okay, fine, but it's really turned out well, and there's only a few tiny things that have annoyed me, not even much annoying really, but
Yeah.
I'm just happy that we get more Star Wars, and I guess I'm not burned out on Star Wars as much as I thought I was, so that's good.
Not at all. Neither am I burned out on Star Trek. I know we were going to go into
No.
Stranger Things, but I would say maybe we curb that for another week until I've watched more episodes, because
That's fine. Yeah, you've only seen two. Right?
Yeah.
I've seen all. I watched the whole thing, and then we have to wait until the final two episodes.
yeah, so I'd
Which
like
come
to
out in a
watch
few
the
months.
rest and then we can talk about it.
And that's fine. Yeah, I'll talk about Stranger Worlds, and we can do picks. But I
Yeah.
would say that if you want to talk about Stranger Things for just a second, I also was like, oh, it's been a year or two or whatever. I don't even remember when
It's
the
been
last
like
season
2
came
years
out. But
since, yeah.
and I was like, oh, I don't know if I don't even care that much anymore. And I watched it out of habit almost, but I was pulled in pretty quickly. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I remember why I love this show. It's so fun. And this season, they're really laying on the horror elements a lot more, which I appreciate. And it really is good. It's really good, and I'm enjoying it very much. And you do get a lot of explanation and a lot of closure for some characters. Not closure per se, but you get a lot of you understand more
Yes.
about how things happen and why things are the way they are and how the whole thing started, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really good, and I'm enjoying it. And I love the D&D aspects because I love D&D, so
Of
that's
course.
pretty cool for me.
Yeah,
But yeah, we don't have
just real quickly, I was the same way as you, because Stranger Things has a particular style and tone to it, and it's very much not. It's very different than current shows. I'll say that, if that makes any sense. So at first, I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I'll watch this," and started the first episode. But pretty quickly, I was like, "Okay, I'm back into it, and I understand now." Back in that tone, and I can watch it. But yeah, I want to watch the rest of what's up there before we really dig into it, I think.
Well, yeah, we'll watch it. And we'll get into it later. Yeah, that makes sense, because I don't want to accidentally spoil anything for you. And maybe not everybody's binged it. I mean, again, that's one. I used to think that was a positive of Netflix, but now I'm kind of like, oh, I don't want to binge it, but I did anyway.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm sad that I did, because I was like, oh, each episode's an hour and a half or whatever. That seems like a lot. But then very shortly I realized I didn't care, because I was enjoying it so much and I wanted more. But yeah, it's really cool. I'm glad that it's back, and I'm glad that we're going to get some more of it. But I'm not even tired of Kate Bush, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still running up that hill. So.
I'm still running up that hill. Yeah. So all right, well, we can talk about Stranger Worlds then. That's fine.
Yes.
I another killer episode, another great episode. But as it was evolving or starting off, I was like, oh, a body swapping episode. That's interesting.
Freaky Friday on Star Trek, really?
Freaky Friday on Star Trek, yeah. But man, they pulled it off really well, and kudos to the actors for doing such a great job pretending to be each other.
Yes.
And I think, I think it was Shoresy, right? That was the actor. Yeah, he was. 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 And I like the sort of anything that brings back the original series, like the whole marriage scene and even the music. That I don't want to get demonetized, but it's like da, da, da,
Oh,
that.
that was
I was like, I can hear that in the
fantastic.
background,
Yeah.
and they had it's like so cool and such a great such a great callback and such a great sort of homage to that episode of Muck Time. It's just so good. And but Spock, you have to fight yourself, and and it's a real thing for
Your
Spock. I mean, he had a
ears.
lot of
Yeah.
your ears. Yeah, he had a lot of trouble. I mean, I like the fact that they talk about this kind of thing because they hardly ever mention it in the original series. I mean, a little bit, but the fact that Spock always had to struggle, even as a kid, that the Vulcans never really accepted him because he was part human, and the humans sort of probably didn't accept him that much. But he feels at home in Starfleet, and that's a big sort of part of this episode. Is like, I found a place where I'm accepted, and Star
Yes.
Trek is so woke now that it's all about acceptance, right?
Yeah, yes.
And whatever. So it's like, because they never talked about this stuff before. It was never this way. There was no politics or anything. Now that it's so woke, you can talk about acceptance, and you can talk about finding your place where everyone cares about you as a person, not whatever. But it was great that they brought that up, and it's interesting to think about Spock like that in that context because he has a lot more baggage, I
Yeah.
think, than people realize. So it's cool, and she was great too. I keep saying she. I wish I could remember the actress's name. I'm a terrible person.
Gaia Sandu.
Gaia Sandu. Thank you. It was cool. She's great, and she does a great job pretending
Maybe
to
it's
be
Gia,
Ethan
but
Peck,
yeah.
pretending to be Spock. But I think my favorite line almost was Spock is like, "Yes, you can clearly tell. Don't we seem different to you?" And Pike is like, "Oh yeah, totally, man. I can totally tell the difference between you two monosyllabic, people. It's like, it makes perfect sense."
Yes.
That was great. And then of course anything with Jess Bush, Dr. or Christine Chapel. I said Dr. Chapel, but it's Nurse Chapel. She's awesome in this episode in particular. The way she sticks up for Spock and clearly has feelings for him,
Yes.
and the way she handles the other relationships with that other dude. And she's like, no, I'm maybe when the right guy comes along. And that's of course canon because Nurse Chapel always liked Spock back in the
Exactly.
day too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm totally digging it. It was a great episode. What did you think, Joe?
I liked it a lot. I'm really loving the show, and I'm amazed that not so much with the three leads, but everyone else, how quickly everyone is like set in their characters, and we're only 4 episodes in, and it's just really great, and we deal. They have the right balance of each week is going to be a new adventure, but we obviously have these continuing things with the characters that we're going to reset every episode to a new adventure, but not reset where the characters are. We're going to continue that forward. Right. And I'm especially interested now because this early on in the show, we have this now understanding between Spock and T'Pring. It's like, so how did they get from where they are now with this new understanding and commitment to each other to where they are in Amok Time in the original series, because they were
where she wants to be with what's his face, Sonar or whatever his name, Son, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
So is that character going to be introduced at some point? And so how did all that happen? And I imagine because they are addressing it this soon that we'll get to see how that develops over the course of hopefully many seasons of this show. But yeah, no, just another outstanding episode.
It goes back to what we were saying. I hope they just segue right into Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's like you've already developed a lot of these characters. You could just, once Kirk is involved and everything, you need to get McCoy at some point, and you just move on and start the show. Like, after 5 years with Pike, you move on to...
Yeah, Gary Mitchell joins. Yeah, so...
Yeah, you could do all that shit. It's going to be... I think I have to think that's the plan, because they're laying the groundwork for it now.
Yeah.
And we know what happens to Pike at some point. So at some point, Kirk will have to take over the Enterprise, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, I just love the fact that, like you said, all these characters are coming into their own. You're getting a lot of good information. But yeah, they are resetting the episode. But this episode was interesting because it takes place on the space station, right? So they could use the giant stagecraft surround sound thingy
Yes.
for all that stuff. So they wouldn't have to build sets or anything, but they're getting full use out of that thing. Like especially when Lon and number one are on the deck on the surface of the Enterprise when that sailing ship flies by, right? That was a cool scene, and you got to think that was actually there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
On the big
yeah,
wall,
yeah.
to show them, and it was. Oh, I was thinking about this. We were talking about Obi-Wan a second ago, but I like the fact that, and I don't know if this happens in other shows or happened in other shows before. I think it did more recently. But I love the fact that the lightsabers actually glow on their faces.
Yes.
Yes. That was super cool because Obi-Wan's got his blue lightsaber and you can see the glow of the blue light on him. I don't know that I just noticed it in this because it was dark, I guess, whatever. But
yeah,
I thought it was a cool detail. But I like the fact that they use the stagecraft surround wall thing, and the lighting just sort of plays across the actors like it really would, because it really is there.
Right.
I mean, obviously it's it's fake, but it's just this whole representation of the thing, and it's really well done. And I think that they're able to do these kind of things that you couldn't necessarily have done as well. Maybe, I mean, you could still do them in front of a green screen, but they're actually standing there on the stage watching this thing, and they can actually act with it and interact.
Well,
with
Ewan
it.
McGregor actually talked about that. I know we're talking about Star Trek, but in recent interviews, he's talked about how difficult it was making the prequels because it was all green screen and blue screen, and there were for most of the second prequel, it was him acting by himself.
Right, he's sitting in something, in front
or
of
a pole with a tennis ball on it so that he can have an eye line, and it's basically him acting himself. And he goes, but now they have the stagecraft, and you actually see what's going on, and that's been huge. And I think that shows well in Obi-Wan, but also in Star Trek, that they're able to react to actual what they're seeing, and as opposed to, okay, so pretend this is something really cool. We're not sure what it looks like yet because we haven't finished making it, but you're awed. But now they can actually see it and react to it, and I think that's a huge step forward.
It definitely is, and I think it's funny that you say that about he's talking about the prequels, but that the whole time when he goes to see Grievous and all that stuff, it's like that's all fake, right? That's all.
Well, when he goes to the clone thing, that's all.
Yeah, it's like you're walking across a thing. Yeah. Him and Tamara Morrison, and that's it, right? Or in the kid. That's
because the other aliens, other creatures and stuff that he speaks to aren't there. They don't exist.
When he goes, the Kaminoans or however you call them.
I agree with when they're on the hull, they see that ship go, and again, I think this show is another, like, the spirit of Star Trek, like especially Pike going, why should you join us? You're right. And he's like, I realized that they just want someone to relate to them. And it's like, that's awesome. That's brilliant. And we got to see April again, which was really cool. So,
yeah, and I loved that Juan and number one's game.
Yeah.
Enterprise Bingo was super funny too.
Sign the Scorch, and you're like, what the hell's that? And then you finally find out at the end. It's like, oh crap, that's cool.
Yeah, well, they're in the turbo lift engineering bridge, and they're just it's super fun. Yeah, they're just doing. I did have a question though about the medical transporter, because isn't M'Benga's daughter in the medical transporter buffer?
Yes. So
they're busy transporting people with the medical transporter, and so does the buffer just sort of disappear, or is she saved? Because M'Benga goes to the planet to fish, and they're like, did they just kill his daughter? I don't know.
No, I think they talked about that's segmented off or whatever. But
okay, good. Because you would think number one would realize that, but he's got. By the way, one of the greatest lines in the show, in the episode 2, is like, "I don't even know what I'm saying." It's like, what nickname? He's so good, man.
Yeah,
he's so good
that was great. I don't even know what I'm saying.
I don't know what I'm saying.
You did like chew the scum till the flavor's out. Then I'm going to transport you into the buffer and bring you back. And it was like, oh, the flavor's back. And it was like, what?
But how does that even work?
Yeah, that was pretty great. So
is it because the pattern, the whatever you call it, the Heisenberg compensators or whatever?
So does that mean every time you transport that you're not put back together the way you were when you were transported?
Well, no, the whole conceit about transporters is that, and I don't know where I read this, but it's basically you're destroyed every time and recreated every time.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the gum is recreated like it was. I don't know. It's a weird thing to throw in there. It's
Yeah,
a sort of a minor detail in some
yeah,
ways, but it has implications, which I thought was interesting.
maybe,
So.
but yeah, it was a great episode. It's
But does that mean that Mbenga's daughter can be healed by the transporter? That's
maybe,
what I was wondering.
but it shows that Star Trek is good. I think over the first 4 episodes, we've gotten different tones, and Star Trek, even with the original series, has always been really good at comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, because this obviously kind of not mimicked, but was kind of the same thing as Shore Leave back in the original series, although less serious. Shore Leave got serious pretty quickly. But,
Shore Leave got serious, but it also reminded me of Piece of the Action.
yes,
which is one of my favorite episodes where they become gangsters.
and that was great
which
too. Yeah,
such a funny episode. But yeah, I mean, you're right. They just did a really serious episode with the whole Gorn thing, and so they had to sort of lighten things up a bit. And this was a character development episode more than anything, I think, too. It shows that Pike is a real diplomat and shows that he can handle himself and how he values Starfleet and everything.
Yeah.
Spock realizes where his place is in Starfleet. And that's probably what happens with him and T'Pol or T'Pring at some point, because he realizes the only place he feels at home is on the Enterprise in Starfleet.
Yes.
He does not want to go back to Vulcan. He does not want to live a normal Vulcan life. And she's like, no, dude, we're going to live in Vulcan. He's like, no, I don't want to do that.
Right.
So that's probably where some of the conflict comes in. And if they only see each other every 7 years when Spock's like wants to get laid, that seems like a one-sided relationship too. I don't know.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, maybe that's how it happens.
Well, it does happen,
Yeah,
right? Because
right.
if they're going, well, I don't know. If you listen to what Akiva Goldsman says, like, loose cannon, right? So it's like, maybe it doesn't happen. I don't know. We're reinventing things. And I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, I'm fine if they give us a really entertaining, well done show. I don't really care. So
listen, I'm Star Trek means a lot to me.
Yes.
It was a huge deal in my life, like Star Wars, but Star Trek was almost a bigger deal at some point too. And I'm fine with them. I don't want to say retconning or whatever, but just sort of telling their own story based on Star Trek.
Yes.
Right? It's like, this is Gene Roddenberry's vision of the future and of Star Trek, but we're putting a new spin on it, and we're just sort of telling a story that makes sense for these characters and these times and everything. And that's great. And I think they should keep doing that. And I don't have a problem with any of it. So.
I think that's why I'm like you, that I hope that 5 years, 7 years, however long this show goes, that it segs into, and now we're going to redo the original series. I'd be all for that. And
again, I've said this before, but how could they not? I mean, it makes sense. You need to sort of, you introduce these characters in Discovery. Everyone loved them, obviously.
Right.
And so you've got the 3 principals, and you bring Uhura in, you're going to bring Kirk in. Why would you do any of that if you weren't planning on, eventually going to a regular, back to the OG,
Exactly.
Why would you? You wouldn't. And so I would bet money, I put money down right now that's what they're going to do.
That's a long-term
5
plan.
years, 6 years. Yeah. 5 years, 6 years down the road, we know what happens to Pike. That's the bottom line. That's not in dispute. Pike gets fucked up probably.
Right.
And so they need a new captain for the Enterprise.
Exactly.
And so I'm just looking forward to when they do the menagerie again, because that would be cool.
Yeah, because they could totally do that now.
They absolutely could. Yeah.
And
because you also get, and that's what's interesting about this too, is you finally understand as you go along why Spock was so loyal to Pike.
Absolutely.
Why he felt such a relationship with him to jeopardize his entire life and career. Because Talos 4, the only death penalty on our books.
Yeah.
He was willing to sacrifice everything to help him, and you understand that more and more as this goes on, how their relationship came about, which makes it more interesting how he and Kirk ended up being so close.
Yeah.
Because Pike and Kirk are different.
Exactly.
Right? Pike is like Picard more than Kirk, I think. He's definitely a thinker and a negotiator, but also it's interesting the way that Anson Mount is playing him. He's definitely a guy of action if he needs to be, but for the most part, you haven't really seen him like jump around with a phaser shooting shit. Exactly. He's basically talking his way through things. He's more of a diplomat. He's more like Picard than he is like Kirk. But I'll be interested to see what they do with Kirk in the context of this show because he can't be like a womanizing dick like he was in the original series. You know,
Well, there was
he can't.
rumors for a while that, and I have no idea where anyone gets these rumors from, other than just making them up.
Sources,
Yes,
sources, man.
trusted sources, but they were,
Trusted
I guess,
sources.
they were either some casting notes or something like that. They were talking about Kirk being either bisexual or omnisexual, and I'm like, well, yeah, why not? I mean, it's the far future. Who cares, right? So,
Well, that fits with that one footnote that I think I mentioned to you one time when the Star Trek novelization where they talk about how Kirk and Spock maybe got it on. You know, they
right,
don't really
right,
know.
exactly.
You know what? You're right. I mean, I don't know though, because Spock only has sex every 7 years, right? So it's like, what's in it for Kirk? Kirk likes to.
Well,
Kirk likes to.
he gets to sleep around in the meantime. So,
Kirk likes to have sex more than once every 7 years. I would imagine.
well, then it's like, yeah, well, you can see other people because we know he's not, monogamous.
Well,
So,
that's true. Well, you know, it makes sense if you think about it in some ways because Kirk never commits to another relationship.
yeah,
Right?
so maybe he
His
has,
longest relationship was with Spock and also McCoy, oddly enough, too.
yes,
And so it's like maybe they have a thing. I don't know,
it
but
could be, and it's like the understanding is, in the intervening 7 years, you can go do
that's
whatever you
right.
want. I don't care. So,
The 7 year itch. Exactly.
so,
I mean, I got to think that Roddenberry had that in mind. The 7 year
oh
itch
yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
It's like,
So it
yeah,
seems oddly specific, but
yeah. So because that was a big popular movie back then.
it
You know, if
was
you've never seen it,
exactly. Yes.
it's a great movie.
It is
if you've
actually a
never
really
seen
good
it.
movie, so I
Yeah.
recommend it. So,
Yeah, recommended. Anyway, so yeah, I cannot. Every week, I'm excited for a new episode.
yes.
It's probably one of my favorite shows that's on right now. I'm very pleased, as we've said many times. I'm very very pleased that it's
I
on,
guess we're five
and
episodes in now, so we're halfway through the season, which I'm
I
like,
hope it goes
no.
on. I hope it goes on forever. Yeah, I hope it
We
goes
know
on. Next week has gotten.
we're at least getting a second season, and I would imagine that this will go much like Discovery, probably as long as they want it to. So, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know that ratings are as important as they used to be. So I think people are watching it, and they're certainly talking about it. I see it online a
yeah.
lot. But it did not get as much. It is not getting as much viewership as Obi-Wan Kenobi, which apparently is the most viewed Disney Plus show.
Oh yes, well,
So it's also so they're probably. I mean, why not make another season of that too?
yeah.
Because you've got a few years before Obi-Wan meets his demise, right? So he can do a lot of things. But it's funny. You made a point of saying that they sort of circumvented expectations the way it was advertised. And then, it's an adventure where he saves Leia. It's like, yeah, it's cool how they did that, I think,
Yeah.
to sort of circle back to Obi-Wan for a second. But yeah, I would watch more of that. And I would watch, season 3 of The Mandalorian if it ever comes out, which is next year.
February.
I guess, but
Yes.
February.
February.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, kudos to everyone doing Star Trek right now.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get another Star Trek movie in the Kelvin universe too, which they could have done. And that's funny because they could have based all of these Star Trek shows in the Kelvin universe and not gone back to the original. And then they could have kind of done whatever they wanted, but they chose to kind of go back to the original universe
Yes.
to fit them all in. I mean, obviously Discovery sort of went off in its own direction and went into the future.
Well, I think
But-
at the time though there was a rights thing that
Was there?
yeah, that the
I thought CBS
movie
owned that.
and no, CBS owned the television version of Star Trek and Paramount owned the movie version of Star Trek, and now they're the same. Now they, I guess, Viacom, CBS,
Right, 'cause it's all
bought
Paramount Plus, yeah.
So now they're consolidated, but at the time it was, kind of like. Weirdly enough, Warner Brothers has with you can't have the same characters on our TV shows in the DC universe as you do in the movies. It's got to be different actors and all this kind of stuff. It's so weird the way that's worked out. But yeah, Star Trek and movies and Star Trek TV were separate, so you couldn't have any actors or characters crossing over. But that's not true anymore. So who knows? I know they are in development for a new Abrams Kelvin universe Star Trek movie. So
Yeah.
maybe that's
Yeah, I have more of an appreciation for those movies now, especially
I think they're really good.
the last one, which I thought was really good.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I think it was good because they got everybody away from the Enterprise, and and sort of deconstruct it in a way, and they still ended up almost destroying the Enterprise anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
Which that's the thing. That's the go-to. Let's just blow up the Enterprise a couple times.
yeah.
Or destroy it. In
Every
some way.
third movie will destroy the Enterprise.
At least. Oh, they did it 2 movies in a row in
Yeah, they
the
did.
Universe, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like it just Ilba cut her throat. It's like she's dead.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, but yeah, I like the last one especially. Originally, I was like, oh, Justin Lin, so it's Fast and the Furious Star Trek. And they did get Kirk on a motorcycle, which I thought was cool.
But he
did
did a
some
great
jumps.
job with the movie, though. I thought Justin.
No, he did. I was skeptical, but he did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was skeptical because I'd only really seen his stuff with Fast and the Furious, and I was like, oh, Fast and the Furious is technically proficient. I wouldn't say they're great movies, but they're certainly fun and ridiculous. But now I'm curious to see Jason Momoa and Vin Diesel in the same movie together. That'll be interesting. So.
And what's his name? Jack Reacher.
Oh yeah, Alan Richardson.
Yeah,
too.
he's in this too. It's like we're just gonna have everybody in this movie.
Well, I think Charlize Theron comes back, and I think
Alison Brie is in it, and there's somebody else they just mentioned lately. I was just like, really? How many people are going to be in this movie? But
what was Charlize Theron in recently too? She was in something else, like a surprise cameo. I'm trying to remember what that was.
Supposedly, and I haven't seen it yet, but I got it spoiled. She's at the end of Doctor Strange.
Oh no, but she was in something else too. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler. Sorry. But
anyway, because yeah, we keep talking about how we're going to talk. We keep talking about how we're going to talk about Doctor Strange, but now it's been announced that it's going to be on Disney Plus June 22nd. So we're probably just going to wait. That way, everyone who didn't want to go to the theater can see it, and then we can discuss it. It's interesting. I've avoided almost all spoilers still, which is cool. I still want to go in cold. I mean, I don't really care that much.
Nah.
I sort of do, but I do like to see things fresh, if only to enjoy something from that perspective. But I wouldn't care because I do know a few things that happen now, and I haven't been able to get a copy of the movie. Usually stuff just sort of appears, but it hasn't appeared, unfortunately.
No, not at all.
Anyway. So let's go to are we done with Star Trek? Because
I think so.
we could just make this an entire Jess Bush episode. I'm fine with that.
Jess Bush appreciation episode.
She is awesome. She doesn't have a huge acting resume. I mean, has some work, but she's just kicking ass on this show. And I think, like you said, probably one of the breakouts for sure. But her and Ethan Peck just have a couple of great scenes, especially what her friends are for, like you said, and a couple other things. It's just they're really good together, and she's just really good in general. She can do comedy, she can do drama. I think she's gonna have a big career. So
yes,
and him too. I mean, he has a good lineage. He comes from Gregory Peck as his dad, and Gregory Peck was no slouch in the acting world. So
exactly. Yes,
he's a pretty good actor.
Yeah, he's all right.
He's all right. Yeah. Or as someone said, Gregory Peck or Ethan Peck's, you mean, or whatever, right? So
yes, exactly.
Because he's takes his shirt off. So he takes his shirt off because Kirk doesn't have to. Oh, I'm sorry, Pike doesn't have to. Oh, the only other thing I want to say about this episode of Strange New Worlds, fucking shout out to the green wraparound uniform.
Yes.
Love that. Loved it.
That was fantastic.
And Spock had the same thing. Spock had the blue wraparound.
Yes, he did.
Which he never got hardly in the other episodes. Only in the Mirror Universe he had the blue wraparound.
That's true. Yes.
Will we see Spock with a goatee in this series?
They got to have a joke somewhere where he starts out the episode with a goatee, and they're like,
I feel like they're going to have the Mirror Universe episode at some point.
That's gonna. How does that work though? Because they didn't.
I don't know. Well, that's how Lorca comes back. I'm just saying.
Well, because the original series episode. Well, I guess they did it in. Yeah, they. You know what? Screw it.
They did it in Enterprise too.
If it would help bring Prime Lorca back, I'd be up for that.
I think that's a missed opportunity. They need to bring Prime Lorca back, or they bring Lorca back. He was a great character that got wasted. I think
so. I would like to see Lorca that is not evil and see how that character.
Jason Isaacs is another great guy that I like to see in everything. I think he'd be great. Him and Idris Elba in a movie.
They could bring him back. I would be all for that.
They could play like the odd couple characters, and just buddy cop, whatever. Anyway, because he plays such a dick really well, but also sympathetic. Because Lorca, unfortunately, was a bad guy kind of in the entire series, right? Because he was always mirror Lorca.
Yeah.
But But Prime Lorca would be. I'd like to see him come back and be a good guy. I think that would be interesting. But because they could, because that's before Discovery goes into the future, right? So
That's
that
true.
He
Yep.
could still be around. Although Discovery takes place after. When does Discovery take place in the timeline?
It,
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
yeah, it takes place before this season of Strange New Worlds, so he could still show up in Strange New Worlds. They could still
Well,
rescue
that's what
him.
I'm saying.
Yeah, so,
So there you go. So perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
yes.
Make it happen. Make it happen, Akiva.
All right, so we're going to go to picks. I'm going to let you go first this year. This episode.
This year.
Jeez.
Thanks, man.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to pick a TV show, which I love Letterkenny. And I was like,
yes.
Shoresy is not my favorite character on Letterkenny. I thought he was kind of a one-note sort of weird character that really Jared Kiso just wanted to be like, I want to be naked in half the show and do like handstands and shit. But I will say that Shoresy turned out to be a delight. Really, it's such a funny show, and he makes Shoresy not a one-note character. He expands it really well, and all the supporting characters are terrific too. Like there's really strong women in the show, indigenous people. The Jim, I don't know if you've watched it, but they have like these three guys all named Jim who are like the enforcers on the hockey team. But it's basically I feel like it's almost a better Ted Lasso in a way, because it's just I think it's one of the best hockey shows I've ever seen. And I don't know that much about hockey, but it's just really funny and it's got a heart in the right place, if that makes sense. But Shoresy turns out to be a guy who actually cares about things, and the whole premise is like he tells the woman who owns the hockey team, he said, "We'll never lose again, ever."
That's right.
And that's the premise. And so he basically does whatever he has to do to make sure they never lose. And it's only like 6 episodes, but it turned out to be so good. And I actually watched it twice in a row. I watched all 6 episodes. I went back and watched all 6 again, and it was just that funny. And it's just, and also it's a really interesting show because all the characters, like a lot of the characters speak different languages, like French, for example,
Yes.
but they just speak it. No one really, there's no subtitles or anything. Obviously the show is made in Canada for the Canadian market first. And so people in Canada speak French. Some people do. But it's just, it was super fun. It was a surprise. I was not expecting to like it because, again, I didn't care that much about the Shoresy character in Letterkenny, but I liked Letterkenny so much. I was like, I'm going to give it a chance. And I was delightfully surprised that it was so good. It's really fun. So that's my pick, Shoresy, which, again, is surprising.
I watched the first
really
episode and I was like, okay, this is different. And it's funny. Like you, I didn't think, I was like, the character to me seemed to be overused on Letterkenny. And I was like, maybe not have him around so much, but now they don't. So he's on his own show. But
he was obnoxious.
Yeah.
I mean, he was obnoxious for almost no reason, but now you kind of get the idea why they explore like he's got a foster family and you get a whole like other backstory for him, but really he just loves hockey,
right?
And he hates. I mean, he makes a distinction which I think is interesting. They talk about he doesn't love to win; he hates to lose.
Nice.
And so that's the whole motivation. But they definitely, they had to tone him down a bit to be the lead of a show. As a supporting character who just shows up to tell you to give your balls a tug,
yeah,
it's different. But or I fucked your mom, or wheeled your mom, as they say, I guess. Or no, your mom wheeled me. Anyway, I'm not sure 100% what that means, but it's fine.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of there's a lot of that humor in the show, and he does they do say "fuck you, Shoresy" an awful lot, which I think is funny.
Right.
But anyway, it's funny. It's a fun show, and it's very vulgar and very whatever, but that kind of thing didn't bother me. And it was kind of like one of those things where it's just what you needed. It made you laugh out loud. It was a perfect for what's going on. It was very light in some ways, and it sort of took you out of the world and made you just sort of laugh and enjoy things. So it was perfect for right now, especially. So, because a lot of serious shit's happening in the world. So it was a well needed respite, if you want to put it that way. So
Agreed.
anyway, I recommend it highly. I think you should watch the rest of it.
I agree. I plan to. It's just
Okay,
time.
cool. Well, I'll be interested to hear what you say after you have.
There's so much stuff to watch, but it's all good.
There really is. So all right, so that's my pick. Like I said, what's yours?
I'm going to pick another TV show, and it's one that we've discussed on this show a bunch, and will soon because the new season is about to premiere. And I may have picked it as a favorite before, but I'm going to pick it again, and that is For All Mankind. Because
Yeah.
I've been rewatching it in anticipation of the third season, and it's just so good. I'm a huge, and I know I've talked about this before, but I'm a huge space nut, especially about the space program. I've always been fascinated about details about the Apollo program and the whole space program in general. I've loved like From the Earth to the Moon, which was very detailed about the Apollo program, and other movies and shows, The Right Stuff, Apollo 13, all those kind of things. I just eat those up. I love those movies. I love anything about it. So having a show that gives us an alternate version of the space program was like a given for me. So, both seasons I've watched multiple times and have loved, and I'm really, really excited for the new season, especially because it takes place in the 90s, but it's a race for Mars and colonizing Mars, and it's just, it's so great. And I love the little details in it because it's like, yeah, this is an alternate universe and all these things are happening at an accelerated pace, but it seems plausible and seems like it could happen, and they take a real world approach to it. And I can only imagine they have quite a lot of consultants from NASA and things like that. It's like, so if this were to happen in this time period, how would that work, kind of thing.
No, I love it. I love the show a lot too, and the trailer for the next season, which drops pretty soon,
Yep.
looks terrific. It's one of those shows that's cool. We talked about it before, but like the end of the last season was kind of a milestone in a way because I don't want to spoil what happens, but
Yes.
some things, and you don't necessarily see that on regular shows. But I like the fact that Apple TV and other plus networks are giving these kind of shows a chance because it's definitely in some ways a slow burn, but it's really cool. I'm happy that it's coming back. It's really great. It's a good pick, Joe.
Yeah.
Good job.
Good. Thanks.
Good work.
Thank you.
All right, so find the Flickcast at Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and all the other places that have the word podcast in them. And then you can also find Joe and I on the socials at What Joe Writes, and I'm at Chris Yu, and then also Ulrich Picks on Instagram, and then of course the Flickcast is at TheFlickcast. If you need to find any of our links for anything, you can go to Linktree, linktr.ee/TheFlickcast. That'll tell you whatever you need to know about where the show is and what's going on with Joe and I, and,
Yeah.
in all of our lives. We have our Patreon, of course, patreon.com/TheFlickcast if you want to support the show that way. And we're doing a Discord collaboration with Whiskey and Waffles, which is still going on. That they're a fun group.
Yes, they are.
Even if you don't want to drink or eat waffles, that's fine. Although waffles do fit in with the Stranger Things discussion, because 11 loves waffles.
Absolutely.
Loves her Eggo.
Yep.
But I think that's it. I think that's basically everything we need to talk about. I'm sure we missed a lot of stuff, and I'm sure there's more things that we'll get to. But that's okay because we have more episodes coming up. So
That's right. We got a whole year of episodes in front of us, so
At least, yeah.
Yes.
At least another year or two, maybe. Who knows? Anything else, Joe?
I think that's it.
All right, well, then let's just go. For Joe Dilworth, I'm Chris Ulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thanks so much for listening.